Last year you were installing a new system. This year you bring back 7, 8 starters, more guys that were reserves that played a lot. So I guess how are things different for you this year as opposed to last year?
Well, obviously, at this time last year, we were still just learning the basics of what this defense is and what it can do. And so, obviously, having those guys that have come back and got a good amount of reps and played in a lot of games, and with that experience, you start mentally further ahead. Now we're obviously going to be very methodical about how we do this. We still have a lot of work to do. Our big deal is we want to be masters of what we do and not a jack of a whole bunch of things. And so, but we're also in fall camp, so every day is an install day for us. But we got plenty of time, and if we got to slow it down, then we'll slow it down.
You took the. I'm curious. Did you take like the last half of the season and say, okay, we're going to change some things this year?
Oh, sure.
To combat, because once people started seeing,
Yeah.
with every defense, right, it happens.
Yeah. Oh no, that's an excellent question, and I think that happens every season. There was probably at about the halfway point, soon thereafter, there was some things that kind of got exposed a little bit, and we were band-aiding somewhat through the course of the season, just because you have only so much time to sit there and reinvent some things, and so you really go to what got us to that point, and what were we doing, and what are some things that we need to do without completely redoing your defense, and because just like you said, I mean, with everything there's going to be a deficiency somewhere. So we got to work on it hard in the spring. We put a lot of focus in on those things. The good thing is Coach Browse and what they're doing schematically, from blocking scheme wise and just a variety of things, was what we were seeing the second half of the season. And so, getting to see that day in, day out, and not having to service each other makes you even better with it.
And they'll stretch you a little bit, right? I mean,
I'm sorry now?
Their offense will stretch you a little bit.
Oh,
right?
they'll stretch you a little bit. I mean, you're going to get a whole bunch of stuff, and then they're doing it with the tempo, and so we certainly feel like if we can sit there and communicate, match up, and execute, and get our lineman assignment and eyes and everything right at that kind of pace, then come game time, it's going to be slow for us.
Coach Lice has said you guys have a lot more depth up front, linebacker, D line. How does that kind of give you more options with what you want to do with the defense?
Well, I think it can give you several options. Defensive line is probably where we took our biggest hit, though, from a graduation standpoint, and losing 4 defensive ends. And, out of those 4, all 4 of them were quality, really good, productive football players for us. Coming from spring into where we are now, there's an additional 6 new guys in there that are having to sit there and learn. And we're having to teach them at a very fast pace. And so I think as we get, by game 3, game 4, somewhere in there, we're going to be able to do, some things that maybe we weren't able to do before.
Coach, how impressed are you with, at those key position battles, how impressed are you with those guys that are competing at those spots?
Well, and that's the thing, really what we want to do, what we try to create, everybody sits there and says, we got 1s, we got 2s, we got 3s and stuff like that. For us, we have to have across the board, and that's D-line, that's linebackers, that's in the secondary. You got a 1A and a 1B. And the only difference that might differ in between those two is execution. It's not necessarily production all the time. It's just cutting down on mental errors, misalignments and stuff like that. And so it's critical that we have that, and then there's got to be that big competition to make it into that 1A, 1B. And fortunately, for most of the rooms, really, we have good competition going across the board, and so we've built some depth now on the defensive line. It's young, some of it's inexperienced and old, but inexperienced in this defense. But that's going to help us tremendously. And then, the big deal for us at linebacker, I felt this way last year at this time. I thought we had an opportunity to be pretty good in the linebacker room, and then we took a big hit hit with injuries and lost 2 or 3 guys right off the bat. One of them didn't even make it out of camp. One of them got hurt in camp and came back, and then, played 3 games and was out the rest of the season. We had one get hurt, season ending at Colorado, first game of the season, and all of a sudden you look up and you don't have a 1A, 1B anymore. And so we played with a short stick the rest of the season. Unfortunately, those guys felt it, obviously, in a long season like that. And then to have those guys back in the secondary, just the communication and everything that's going on, you certainly know when you have your vets out on the field, because they're getting things communicated, they're getting the alignments, getting everybody set and knowing what they need to do, and then we just got to get the young ones to that point as well.
You guys moved Namdi down from safety to linebacker. How's that transition been for him?
It's been great. Some of the things that we did with Namdi last year, we've been playing that middle safety, which we call nickel. We would put him in some of those very similar situations, so it wasn't extremely foreign to him. And then we just knew, from his size and his skill set and everything, that's really where he's going to flourish. And so we obviously did that because there was a big void to fill, with losing the D Winters. That's a hard replacement right there. And we got some other guys, Zach Marchicelli, we'll get Marcel Brooks back, running full speed, hopefully, by game 3, game 4, so that'll bring some different things for us. But felt like Namdi was going to take hold of this, and he has. I mean, he looks a lot better. He's had about 225 right now, and he's still running and moving the way that he was. And so he understands space, he understands, what that means, and it's always easier to move down than it is to move back.
In a perfect world, how many defensive linemen would you like to have rotating?
I don't think there's ever enough.
40?
Yeah, especially I think it's so critical with the style of defense that we run that we're going to have a solid 9 is what we would like to have. That would probably be in that 9, 10, something like that, perfect world. If that was perfect, you got to go into it with 7 that can really rotate and be productive for you.
We'll go 2 more questions.
Jonathan Baggs talked highly about you during the spring. Tell me a little bit about what you've seen out of him and what a young guy like him brings to the linebacker room.
Yeah, so I'll be honest with you, Jonathan, we knew that he was going to be a great football player. He was a guy that had been playing with his hand in the grass, and so just like I said earlier, it's a little bit more difficult to back up than it is to move forward. And it did him a world of good by being an early enrollee and coming and going through spring ball with us, because we can really slow things down. We don't have a game or anything to be played, and so we can really slow it down. I think his biggest deal is he was further along at playing the position itself, and I guess I've been working out, I don't know. He was a little bit further along at playing the position, and then the mental aspect, he's been really good from the standpoint of retaining what he had learned in the spring. So we've been able to pick up where we left off, and that's a hard thing to do, because you only get 15 practices. We finished up, early April, whatever it was, and here we are all the way to August. And so, he's a student of the game, a very smart young man, and extremely mature, and so. I mean, this is a guy that's going to come in. He's going to be productive for us from the very get-go.
Joe, you had some places that were interested in you as a head coach in the offseason. Yeah, you elected to stay at TCU.
Yes, sir.
Wow.
Well, I think it's all the same reasons, probably even more so now, but a lot of the same reasons why I came to TCU, because this is essentially home for me. Stephenville is 6 miles down the road. My family's still there. I got family that lives here. We're Texas people. This is an unbelievable community, unbelievable university. Just the way you sit there, you look around, and you look at all these people that have been here. I mean, Mark, how long have you been here?
19 years.
19 years. And so I sit there and I ask people all the time, how long have you been here? 19 years, 20 years, 15 years, 21 years. It's because they love it, but it's also because the university loves them back. And there's a lot to be said about that. And then to sit there and get to work with a group of guys and young men, but I'm talking about these young men. There's young men in every locker room, in every place, and they're always special. But to get to work, under Coach Sonny Dykes and to get to be with the staff, it's a joy to go to work every day. And I love coaching football. and I love being out there and sweating with the kids and all of that stuff, and I just know, you know, my mentality would change a little bit. I don't want it to change, and so I just enjoy the heck out of what I do. I'm very, very grateful and thankful that I had the opportunity.